Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Facebook Live on July 15th. We have a guest today. Ryan Estimer is with us. And hello, Ryan. Good evening.
Hey,
Hey, pretty good. Thank you. How has your day been?
good, busy, and peaceful.
Um, I wanted to start off today, Ryan. I don't know if you ever watched the Russell Brand interview with Eckhart. Did you get a chance to watch it?
I watched the intro, maybe like the first 20 minutes, but I didn't finish it.
Okay. So in that video, Russell Brand brings up Eileen, you've watched it, the Russell Brand conversation with Eckhart. It was posted on YouTube. Russell Brand brings up this concept of he used a term for it. I'll have to. It's like panism or something about the geography of an area. He said, and I don't know if the viewers are familiar with the fact that Russell Brand has fought a lot of addiction, right? His condition pattern has been a lot of drug addiction, different kinds of addictions. So he said that there was a certain area in London that the psychic energy of that area is such that you do feel like there's a drop in consciousness and it kind of attracts people that are addicts and heavy into drug dealing. That area in London is heavy into drug dealing and drug addicts and addictions. So I wanted to, my experience has been that not only is it that an area can have, depending on the geography of where you are, um, that area can also be so consecrated that your vibrational energy is raised automatically, right? So, where Ramana Maharshi, I think he lived in the area where there is this temple called Venkatesha Temple, Tirumala, in India. It's a very revered temple. And as you walk into the courtyard of the temple, and it's like, India being so um, devotional, like there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people lined up in a long line waiting to get into the inner sanctum of the temple. But as we go into the courtyard of the temple, we can feel the energy, right? Eckhart has talked about cathedrals having that same effect, right? Like I'm sure when somebody enters St. Petersburg, the moment they enter the inner sanctum, they feel their vibrational energy rise, right? The same thing I would think with Mecca. I don't know if Eckhart mentioned it in the interview with Russell Brand about Mecca, but I would think that if anybody has been, my experience with talking to people who have gone and touched the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem, it has the same effect. Like it has a profound transformational, like the person actually makes a shift in consciousness just right there in that area on the Wailing Wall. So I want you to speak to it, and I feel that is the other opportunity. If people are feeling heavy, people are feeling negativity, then change the area. Go into, my suggestion would be go up in a mountain for a little while, at least take a few hours, drive away from the city, go up in the mountain to raise your vibrational frequency, increase your presence power. So I'll let you speak to it, Ryan, and I think Eileen has posted something on the chat as well. But go ahead. Thank you. Thank you for being here with us. An honor and a privilege.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a really interesting topic. one of the times where I've heard Eckhart mention it actually was when he felt moved to move to California, to the west side of the United States, whereas before he was somewhere in Europe. And after he made that move, the book The Power of Now came out. So you do kind of have to wonder, like, is there some kind of energetic equation there? You know, this can't be a coincidence. And actually, I've been to California, and I did feel there's this certain lightness about certain areas. And I guess over the years, I have kind of noticed that. Even different houses, like my house versus someone else's house versus someone else's house. Sometimes you walk into a certain house and you just kind of feel like a heaviness or something. Or you kind of get like an intuitional feeling. I don't know. It's really interesting. I definitely think there's something to it. I think there's so much about this reality that we don't understand, and that's where like something like this I think is pointing to this one of the great of the many mysteries of our physical dimension. Um, it's just sort of hinting at that there is so much more to this world than what meets the eyes. And you know, interestingly though, too, one of my fundamental practices is, while I certainly recognize like Arunachala, the mountain that Ramana Maharshi lived on. I mean, I can only imagine how wonderful it would feel to be there. Same with like, I did see Eckhart once and I was like kind of far away, but I still felt an energy there. As well as someone else I see a lot. Her name's Amma. She's the hugging saint. I see her once a year usually. And it's just like the energy of the room, not just of her, but also of her followers. It's just a beautiful, loving, very spacious energy. It's very easy for me to just slip into like this blissful presence around her and around that environment. Um, but what I'm always been curious about, and where my practice is like, yes, those are certainly sacred spaces, but I really feel that what makes them sacred is also deeply within each of us. The presence deep within us is the very thing that makes those particular areas very sacred as well. And so, while I think there's a beauty to pilgrimage or to traveling to various areas, it also creates a limitation because it also has this polarity of I couldn't possibly be just as bliss and connected and source where I am right here and now, or at the airport, or in a taxi, or you know, all the normal places that aren't necessarily special. Um, and oh, go ahead.
They're not able to hear you, Ryan. Is it possible for you to speak louder or the
Yeah,
microphone? Thank you.
yeah. I'll just speak a little louder.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. So my big practice for me personally is when I don't remember where I heard it, but somewhere I heard enlightenment is when you recognize that the mountaintop is everywhere. That the sacred vortex of energy, so to speak, um, it can be everywhere. You can be the vortex, and and so beautiful if we can travel somewhere that inspires us, that really connects us to who we are. But I really personally practice and feel that there's a certain dependency on physical location in order to get presence, and that's not quite it. Because the deepest level of presence, there is no dependency. The only thing you need is this moment and awareness, which in the presence of your presence, and in that, it's like everything becomes sacred. There isn't an area that's not sacred. Everything is sacred, and sure, there are plenty of people who are not operating in their own sacredness, but that too is sacred. Like underneath their stories is the sacred. So it's everywhere. And I partially had to come to this realization because I had to accept where I am, certain life situations of mine at the moment. I can't move anywhere else. I can't go to California. I can't go to India as much as I'd love to go to India. Um, so that also, I guess, just life circumstance forced me into the realization of like, you don't need to. All you need, the only thing you need for the equation of supreme awakened enlightenment is this moment right here and your own presence. Because that's what makes anything sacred is that presence that we also can tap into. So I'm a big practitioner of really carrying that sacred feeling everywhere I go. So airports, fast food places, there's no area where it can be.
I think it's still low. Is that correct, Eileen?
No, I was just gonna stop you. There's like 3 or 4 people that have said they can hear fine now.
They're fine?
Good.
Okay, great. Thank you. So Kelly says the Peace Gardens on the Manitoba North Dakota border is like that. Amazing energy. And architecture has a way of focusing energies to elevate physical body energies. So I felt it even like just going up a mountain in Colorado. I think mountains, because they are millions of years old, they hold that presence power. So the more secluded you go into an area, right? You go up a mountain, just trekking, that's sufficient to the amount of stillness that we can experience just being in the mountains is in, indescribable, I would say.
Yeah, nature's in and of itself, I feel is very sacred as well.
Helen has a question. Are they sacred, ignorant to personal light, or is it just a thing?
Mm. Like as for those who are not aware of their own sacredness, I'm guessing, like unconscious individuals. Is that sort of the
I
question?
don't know what the question means. Are they sacred, ignorant to personal light, or is it just a thing? Or I think she may mean, is sacredness not known? Um, is sacredness not known if you're ignorant to personal light?
Mm. I One thing I found that really blew my mind a few years ago was when I just looked up the dictionary definition of the word ignorant. Because before that, I had all kinds of like this personalness. It was like it was an insult. Is kind of how I perceive the word ignorant uh, until I looked at the definition, and the actual definition of it is simply lack of awareness. There's no personalness in there. It's just you have a lack of awareness, then there's some form of ignorance, um, which I guess you could say anyone operating on consciousness is just operating simply in the lack of awareness, lack of internal awareness mixed with lack of like awareness of the big picture of us all being equal and one, connected, which if you don't realize that we are all equal, in insanity, sort of naturally, just
What I would say is there is no personal light, right? Personal light again divides, is a division. Me and the other, me with the personal light, and the other maybe ignorant. So in the depths of our stillness, when we are in that, like when we take that suspended breath, the depth of that stillness we get connected to the one consciousness, like the stream of consciousness that we are, which is what the other is, whether it is Eileen or whether it is an ignorant person. So sacredness is there in this table, in this monitor that I'm looking at, um, Eileen and Ryan. So sacredness in everything. It's just the knowing, like when we get into the depths of who we are, is when we can experience the sacredness even in a stone. Like I used to love going to the beach and they have the smoother stones and putting a few beautiful ones in my pocket, and they were just stones, pebbles, right? But they get smooth because of the water brushing against them. They get very smooth. So even a stone has a lot of power to it. I think even Eckhart says the same thing. Whenever he mentioned it, I was like, oh my God, he's another lover of stones. Just regular pebbles that are found at the beach. There are a few more questions, Ryan. Let me scroll up.
Something I just throw in real quick from what you were mentioning. What helped me really feel, because the idea of seeing everything as sacred, I mean, it sounds nice. It sounds like, okay, that sounds like it's cool. But how do you really integrate that into a genuine feeling? What for me it was really recognizing present moment is the sacred. The moment is the most important variable to anything being sacred, and everything arises and is existing in the field of present moment. So therefore, everything is sacred because present moment is sacred. Like almost like seeing everything as this blanket of connectedness. Yeah, something about that really made the feeling of everything being sacred much more tangible versus like a nice concept, in my mind. But then somebody, you know, in a bit of a craziness towards me, suddenly I don't see them as present moments. I see them as some separate individual that's yelling at me if I forget that it is all present moment.
It's beautiful. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for sharing that. Maria says maybe nature and mountaintops and sacred temples help us experience presence so that we can go to presence more easily when we need to, when we are in the middle of more chaotic situations. Definitely. Or even a meditation space, if somebody has created a good spiritual meditation space, like with the like cleaned it, there's a there are rugs down on the floor and cushions, and you can just sit, right, calmly. So it becomes a really great space. Lakshmi says, I think sometimes accident prone areas are filled with negative energy. Do you have anything about that? That accident prone areas are filled with negative energy?
Hmm. I, well, for example, I was driving for Uber for a few years, and I could feel like there were some areas where people just did much more dangerous things than normal. And I noticed this because driving for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, I start to see these patterns, and I'm like, what is it about this road and this part of this road where people just suddenly get really aggressive? And I noticed that in different parts of the areas. Um, and I don't know, like I don't know what it is. What I My deep practice too is anytime I feel negativity, I look at, well, what's in me is feeling this negativity, because it's like you can reverse that and find a bit of resistance, a bit of ego, a bit of fear or judgment or who knows what. So like those areas really have that negativity are also kind of valuable in really deepening the practice of the resilience and of the because you can be in a negative environment and yet it not affect you, just like you can be around somebody in a pain body that can be yelling at you, but it doesn't necessarily have to affect you if you're deep in your presence and in your practice, then it just kind of goes through you. So anytime I do find an area or a person, anything that stimulates some feeling of resistance in me, I look at that first, like, oh, it's resistance. And I go into that with the practice. And from there, I can learn something about where I had I don't know, something. There's so much to learn.
And one of the things that this book that I, since last year, I've been quoting the book, The Nature of Personal Reality, which is a channel teaching of Seth, written by Jane Roberts. In there, Seth says that here are hospitals. So a person that is already not believing in their health, right? So we take a huge building of hospital where the psychic energy is low. Every person is becoming a believer in their sickness. And then we have babies born.
Mhm.
We bring in new life in that psychic energy. So how, I almost feel, then how's that baby not going to have a pain body? If they're going to be born where there's so low an energy. So the most beautiful thing suggested in the book is like how rich people have little small space. It almost is like one of those uh, in Puerto Rico, or one of these resorts where they have little small buildings. Each person should actually be in a small building if they are sick, and then they
Hmm.
should be allowed sunlight and air. Like there's no sunlight. um, my best friend was in the hospital, and she had a small window. I looked out the window and there are more buildings because it's in
Yeah,
downtown Dallas, the huge
just
hospital.
walls.
Yeah, that's what you see. I was like, oh my God. And she is also very spiritual. So she was like, what do I see?" And then we were like, there's a sky. Of course, there's nature even there.
Little crack of the sky
Yes,
there.
yes, there's a small crack in the. Yeah, it's amazing like how the growth of industrial revolution has actually desensitized humans, and we need to go in the reverse of what the industrial revolution has done. These big cities.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's interesting. It's sort of like a karmic side of that. Uh, it's like the industrial side is sort of a physical representation of what mind looks like when it just gets
Explodes.
100% power. Yeah, when you give it all its power, it's just like organization times a trillion. And forget mental health and wellness, that doesn't exist. And now we're finally getting to the, like, oh no, there is about the mental side. There is something about personal well-being, about, you know, health and our connection to nature. And yeah, it's interesting. Ironically, Native Americans understood this part, this very important part that we're now finally getting back to. But the people that came here that took the land were like, "Oh, these people are savages. They don't know what they're talking about. We know what they're talking about," and created the whole mind-based organization. It's just an interesting
Yep.
cycle there.
There's some more questions, Ryan. Let me scroll up.
What
Uh,
the last one relates to what you're talking about right now. The one that I just put.
okay,
Sorry.
thank you. Let me read the last one then. Julie says, in my job, I work with shelter animals. I'm very attuned to them and very empathetic, but some of my coworkers do not feel the energy of these sentient beings like I can. What can I do to bring a heightened energy or awareness to my work environment to bring in the good energy? Go ahead, Ryan. It's all yours.
Okay. Well, hello, Julie. Um, I mean, the fact that you are in that environment, you being recognizing the being of the animals in and of itself is doing what you're asking. How do you increase or heighten the energy? You are doing that just by recognizing the being. Um, that's beautiful. Those animals are lucky to have you. um, there's a lot to that too. It's like a lot of people do treat animals like they're some inferior species, and humans are like the top dogs. it's really interesting and sad, actually. But how heighten the environment, besides you doing your practice, that's most important. I guess really the other piece of that is just allowing these other humans to be where they're at in their own practice, and not letting their lack of awareness pull your own awareness down, reactivity into judgment, into anger or resistance, because that's only going to dilute your own presence and your own recognition of being. uh, so as you hold your own being presence, and you have all these little guardians of being to help, that's wonderful. And maybe too try to see through some of the individuals, your coworkers that aren't in that same place. Try to see through their unconscious habits, conditioned habits, to their being that's underneath that, because it is there. And that is actually a really powerful way to increase collective energy, is to be able to recognize someone else's being, especially when they themselves cannot. It's a tremendous gift for everyone involved, especially you, and for the other person. And in doing this in time, things do start to heal. People start to better. uh, at the same time, though, we can't really control anyone besides ourselves. So there's a lot of practice of surrender and forgiveness of the unconscious co-workers and things, just doing our best.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan. What I would say to Julie is I work with shelter animals. I'm very attuned to them and very empathetic, but my coworkers do not feel the energy. So what I would say is when we say my coworkers don't feel the energy, my coworkers don't feel the energy, um, we do a lot of I mean, we've had so many conversations for the past few months on limiting beliefs, that if I have that limiting belief that my coworkers don't feel the energy, then that is what is going to happen. I will have coworkers that, so law of attraction, conscious manifestation attracts coworkers that don't feel the energy. So what you have to feel is, like Ryan was saying, these are animals have their own presence power. Like they are also an expression of the same consciousness. So they can, that's why that's why we have domestic animals, right? They bring the anchor the frequency in the family wherever the dog lives, right? The owner may not be that anchored, but the dog is going to bring in presence into um, their lives. So that's the role of the shelter animal. So what I would say is, and there's a talk, the greatest lesson of Socrates, on Socrates, where Eckhart says, not only are we trapped in that judgment, I mean, not only is the other person trapped in the judgment, we ourselves are trapped in that judgment when we say, my coworkers don't have empathy for, so we have to, and then in a second talk in You Are the Sky, he says, when we judge and say, this is the flaw in this person, or we may say, this is the flaw in my husband, or this is the flaw that's in my wife, the other rises, we amplify the flaw. So if you want to have them drop the flaw, you drop the judgment, and you'll see that they'll drop the flaws. So the one way Ryan perfectly said is, look past their whatever less empathetic that they are, look past it and say they're still there. Even if they don't have the empathy, they're still working with sheltered animals. They at least have that much compassion that they're coming in. So your gratitude will shift it, right? Gratitude that they're coming in and working with sheltered animals, right? So I'm going to scroll up a little bit so that we don't miss other people that said something.
I think I
Uh,
might need to assist for a second because there's a lot coming through it, but they're getting out of order.
okay.
So, Helen,
Mm-hmm.
asked in reference to what you had said before, does it make a difference as far as the pain body? Uh, she says babies grow in pain body. So that was in reference to the last thing you talked about. Does it make a
Um,
difference?
does it make a difference in what sense?
She says babies grow in pain body. So I know you guys were speaking about the energy that they're born into, but she asked, does it make a difference?
Um, thank you, Eileen. That's why we have this incredible like being in the form of Eileen helping us. We would be lost without her. So um, what I would say is one of the things that happens is there is a karmic accumulation to that human anyway. Um, we have a video called "What is Karma," and Eckhart explains it very well. What this dense karmic accumulation is in every human being. So the baby is going to be born, but then you know that is the imprint of the environment, right? They're going to have the imprints of their generational patterns, uh, family patterns, the geography that they live in, right? What kind of things that they're going to pick up from the city that they live in, the family that they live in. So, baby having a pain body, we have to allow, just like Eckhart says, right? All of us went through, he himself went through pain and suffering. All of us had suffering was our greatest teacher. So, every human being, the suffering will eventually break them open. And hopefully, they have a teacher like Eckhart to accelerate them. They need very conscious parents. Like when babies are born with pain bodies, they need a highly conscious parent to dissolve, to be there as the conscious mother, conscious father, to allow that pain body to be. And that's how they dissolve it if they find a conscious parent. Ryan, you wanted to talk about babies being born with pain body? Thank you.
Sure. Well, one thing I find interesting that you mentioned about the hospitals is that polarity that you brought up about like death and birth are happening at the same time in a hospital, and I almost see it as like a beautiful balance. I'm not sure if it's out of place as much as it sort of keeps this really nice sort of yin yang balance. At the same time, it would be really interesting to experiment with like maybe separating them or playing with just how much does local environment impact the psyche of the newborn. Um, but as far as like babies, having pain bodies, I don't know. It's a really interesting and complex topic because pain bodies in and of themselves is a very complex thing. In some ways, I suppose pain bodies can be formulated as soon as any sensory happens, and so for that level, I think it's only a few months before the babies develop. We as babies develop hearing and taste to some degree and some sense of feeling, and those are our initial senses into this world. And a really intense, loud, destructive noise or even stress, maybe cortisone level of the mom, the baby is experiencing, and that in and of itself could create some kind of psychological thing. Um, so it gets really complex, and I don't know. It could turn into like a spider web of thinking way too much about it. So I don't know if I'd recommend thinking about that too much. Um, but where I also find really interesting is when even regardless of where a baby is born, when you see a little baby and you hold a little baby, they're just these pure little beings of presence because they don't have any mind formulated yet. There's no language happening. They're just these beautiful little shining beams of awareness. Uh, and I think that's part of the reason, like whenever we see a baby animal or a baby human, we just kind of go, oh, like you just feel this sense of love towards it because it's like fresh being from source, And so I actually also believe that babies, and I don't know age, 2, 3, 4 years old, I don't know, but babies, we're all born in this deep state of presence and being, and then we're actually slowly cultivated out of it through all the various stimulated ego in our physical environments and the minds and the personalities and the styles and the languages and the logics and the, just all of this stuff is just massive amounts of stimulus coming at us. And so we absorb and we absorb and we absorb. I think the thing that's most influential as far as pain bodies go is the parents or whoever is the immediate influencer of that child for the vast majority of their life. They are the crucial component as to how much pain body is created and if and how to teach a child how to handle a pain body. Because inevitably we're going to have, every human's going to have pain bodies. So I think most importantly, much more important than focusing on like where a baby is born, is focusing on developing our own practice of understanding pain bodies so we can really heal ourselves so we don't pass down too much. And so that when they do get to a certain age where they're really experiencing various pain bodies, we have really sharpened tools to give them and say, hey, this is how it works. This is what it is. And that is really, for me, is my primary focus as a dad, is, focusing on my practice for that reason.
Thank you for sharing that, Ryan. I want to go back to Lakshmi saying, I think sometimes we did cover the accident-prone areas.
There's one comment that we still need from the top, and it's from Maria about being at the dentist.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think it's a question so much as sharing about presence.
I think no longer can I scroll up, so.
So Maria says, I was at my dentist yesterday, and it was so beautiful that I was waiting to have my teeth drilled and entered the now, and it was so beautiful sitting in the dentist chair. The things around the room were so alive.
Perfect. Perfect way to be, right?
Yeah.
And then the next place is, I don't know if you can scroll up to at 829, where I think there's like 3 or 4 comments from Jasna. I guess it's the name.
Okay, Jasna says, my question is two-part. I do Reiki meditation, but usually end up falling asleep and have not been up with meditation for years, so I'm having a huge issue with being present in general. Is this still meditation if you aren't awake? I'm never able to quiet my mind. Everyone says keep trying, but it never seems to happen. However, many methods of meditation I try, thoughts, I think she is saying thoughts just keep coming.
She asked a couple of questions she's trying to explain. I think she was having trouble with her laptop. So she said she's trying to phrase the question, but it's not coming out
the
correctly.
right way.
She's having laptop issues. Yeah. So she says basically, can a person's energy be averse to a tuned energy and not for it per se?
No, I would say, so according to Ayurveda or yogic sciences, there are 112 ways of awakening, right? So there are 112 methods of awakening. So it just may be you are not using the right kind of meditation for your type of personality. Some people, so Parker used to come in as a special guest, right? Like she was always here. Parker likes Kundalini yoga. I've never been able to, like, I mean, I like breath work, but that is not something that I do as a practice. I'll do the breath work, but I cannot do 1 hour of breath work, right? That does not anchor me. So to me, sound meditation, which I use sacred acoustics, and I do it 2 hours a day, maybe separated, like 20 minutes here, 20 minutes here, 40 minutes here, kind of 2 hours of meditation. But that sound and the way the sound is, it brings me to presence. Kim Ming's Chi Flow Yoga DVD. That's why I had Kelly as a guest, because Kim Ming teaches Qigong, and Qigong has a way of inhabiting the body. So Jasna, it's more about inhabiting your body, right? Feel the energy within your body. So if you'll have to try different techniques, like you may have to try yoga, you may have to try hatha yoga, you may have to try kundalini yoga, which is more breath work and active movement, right? Sound meditation, meditation in nature, right? Again, back to the space. Like you may have to go to a secluded space, not be in, like go to a park and then meditate, not be in your home where maybe the vibrational energy of the other family members is so jittery, right? Um, like Eckhart used to say that even with his mom, he could never ever spend more than 10-15 minutes with his mom because his mom had that incessant talking, right? So imagine Eckhart with his level of presence could not handle his mom,
Mhm.
right? So there is a, it all depends on your environment, who you're with, how you can meditate. And that's what we had started this whole Facebook Live with, right? Maybe you have to go to a temple and then meditate, but there will be a way that you can anchor your thoughts. Keep up your practice. Don't miss. Practice, practice, practice. Every day, sit. Even if there are too many thoughts, sit with the thoughts. Look at the thoughts. Look at your emotion. Give give attention to what is it that I'm feeling inside my body. This present moment, in this field of awareness, just like Ryan says, it's a fabric, right? What is arising in this field of awareness? I'm going to sit and just experience it. Their thoughts, their emotions, there's anger, there's irritation, there's sadness, there's jealousy, there's whatever emotions you're feeling. Sit with them. And soon enough, as you give more and more and more attention to them, it'll dissipate and the thoughts will slow down. You want to give her some more tips, Brian?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, most of my experience or intention with meditation is quieting the mind. Um, I first experienced it Power of Now, and I recommend reading and rereading that book as much as you can. There's so many good points in the Power of Now that for me really worked. You know, suddenly clicked, and the silence happened, and you know the practices themselves. I personally really enjoy meditation techniques that are as simple as possible because the idea is not to have super stimulating, thought-provoking meditations. The, for my personal practice, it's to return to silence. So the simplicity of conscious breathing. So right now, experiencing the breath with 100% of your energy, attention. Just noticing it. In the moment of noticing it, if you're really in the experience, there's no thought in that little moment. Same with feeling the inner body that he talks about, going into the inner body. Again, directing your attention away from the mind into your physical form is another way to kind of quiet the mind. If your mind has a lot of momentum, though, which sounds like is what's happening here, a lot of different things can come up. I mean, this is quite a big topic. I'd be happy to chat more because this is something I'm all about, and it's kind of hard to even answer with like 5 minute answer because this is like a super pinnacle question: how to quiet the mind. But most importantly, is listen to it right now. What is it saying right now? Just notice, and just listen. Notice it in this moment. and continue to notice it in this moment. And when you want to do a seated meditation, well, it's going to be in this moment. So you listen to it in this moment. There's all kinds of obstacles and things that can come up. The mind is very sneaky because, like, for example, you're sitting in this moment, you're listening, like, what's my next thought going to be? Oh, which this is a great question to ask yourself regularly. What is my next thought going to be? So, and then listen. What's it going to be? I don't know. So then you might hear yourself say, I don't know what my next thought's going to be. And that was it. That's the one to catch. And you go, oh, there it is. As soon as you catch the thought come in, you return to the question. Drop this thought, return to the question. Okay, what is my next thought going to be? You sit. And there's a brief moment when you're waiting for the answer that you are in the silent mind, that you're in the very thing you're seeking. And this is a deep meditation that you continue to do. And over time, you become much more comfortable in the silence versus needing to fill the silence up with more and more words, and concepts, and questions, and ideas, and philosophies, stories, and images, and visuals, and daydreams, and night dreams, just resting in the emptiness. And the final piece is the identification, which is, who are you? You can't quiet the mind if you believe you are the mind, because you would be like destroying yourself, and that would feel very scary and intense. So the idea of quieting the mind would not be as attractive as you might think if you really are attached to it. So that's another piece, is the identity that we have. Especially, I mean, you can even hear it when we say my mind. If we refer to it as I can't quiet my mind, what makes it yours? But that's how it works. It's like, it's so familiar. It's something we've been experiencing for most of our lives that we can remember. And we have just grown really attached to it. We feel a strong sense of safety and comfort with the thinking voice. And it's powerful. It's not all bad. It's a valuable tool in times, but it's also the source of our suffering. And when we can't put it down, then it will drive us a bit crazy, as it does. And so these are all good things to contemplate, sit with. And I guess most importantly is recognizing that quieting the mind is possible. You may not feel like it's possible, but if you can recognize that it is possible, then you can actually experience it. If you believe it is impossible, then it is impossible, because that very thought belief is the big wall that's going to ever stop you from experiencing it. Ironically, it's no bigger or smaller of a thought than any of the other thoughts. But yeah, it's a big question. I guess the final thing I'd say is sitting in silence is both the most advanced and the most difficult meditation practice, because there's nothing to distract you from what's going on within you, both emotionally and mentally. And yet, meditation is so much about cultivating our inner awareness, of always knowing what's happening in our mind and emotionally. So sitting with it, and start small, just a few minutes a day, a couple minutes, just to be, to listen to yourself, and the next day and the next day, and you might decide to push a little bit more, 5 minutes or 10 minutes. You don't need to do 3 or 4 hours of meditation. As much as listen right now, listen to what's happening right now internally, what questions or thoughts or comments or concerns or fears or whatever is coming up right now. Notice that. This can be a meditation.
And I feel the obstacle to a meditation is the mind not allowing us so it's the ego or the identified mind not wanting to die. So it'll hook you, right? It'll hook us to a thought, and then we'll go on to the next thought and the next thought. I know 2 or 3 weeks back, one of the actors in India, and I didn't even know who this person was, never watched their movie, suddenly showed up on my YouTube feed, right? That they committed suicide. Now, I saw for a few days, and I could see my impulse to want to watch another YouTube video related to the suicide, right? Because social media is that way, right? If you watch one, then it feeds, they're tracking your personal preferences, right? YouTube, especially Google, is huge into that. Yeah, Facebook, you would touch one thing on Amazon, like you look at a random thing, look at a bookcase, right? They'll keep start feeding you bookcases in your Facebook feed, right? So that's how social media is. So I realized, and then the mind pulls to go look at the second video or the third video or the fourth video, right? And to that hook that it's catching you and pulling you, don't let it pull you, is what, that's the thing. um we do a beautiful meditation by Jack Cornfield. It's given to us by Sounds True for free, on because of the conscious manifestation course, Ryan. And Jack Cornfield says it's like the small puppy that wants to run away. You come, bring it back, sit, stay, stay, stay. And I loved his tone of voice and the way he says stay. That's what we have to do to our mind initially. Once you get used to it, you'll be so comfortable in your skin that the moment you put on your music or the moment you sit in that spot, you'll immediately go into meditation, like you'll quiet your mind. But initially, you have to, the mind is that way, that it wants to be dominant, it wants to stay alive and speak its thoughts, right? The tape going in our head. So thank you for that, Ryan. Appreciate it. Beautiful. Maria says, my challenge is being present with unconscious people, people who gossip and want to pull me into their drama, or they act with such drama and pain, crying in front of me, looking for my compassion. And I try to be present, but I feel funny looking at them and not showing emotion if they're crying. I don't want to be pulled into their drama. There are times when I know they are exaggerating the story, they embellish the story. They say things that are not factual. What is the best course of action then? Um, One of the things that we learn, and I've learned 4 years of supporting the, almost now going to be 5 years of supporting the Facebook group, is, and I know Eckhart has given this advice. Once we have that presence power, right? Once we are the log that is burning on the edge, we are the one that can go touch another log and like start the fire in them. So the more present in listening mode, the more you can listen, like let your be a field of presence and let your consciousness uh, pull their negativity. Like you are the one that's going to dissolve. Normally, we have to get into stillness to dissolve our negativity, right? That's what is the dissolution of the pain body. Our conscious attention dissolves the pain body, the negative emotions. So our stillness, our solitude, right? What you're going to do with this other person is you are going to be so still while the other person is chattering. You will see their chatter will go down. I used to have a coworker that had a heavy pain body, and she had all kinds of troubles, like with her, maybe her son was passing away or had a terminal illness, her daughter was leaving her, whatever it may be, right? So what I would do is I would put on these Indian mantras for pain and suffering, and I would listen to it and become very still at work, very still. And I would see her quieten down, like immediately, like suddenly she would start laughing. I think Kim has that story too, right? About being at Starbucks. that Kim Eckhart's partner has the same story, that she was at a Starbucks sitting next to a young woman who was talking to an older gentleman, maybe her father, and she was like having a huge pain body attack. And Kim just sat in presence, and suddenly this girl burst out laughing. And the same thing I would notice about my coworker, that suddenly she would burst out laughing or at least get calm, like the loud voice or yelling or profanity, all that came down. And at least there was calm. Maybe their chatter was not gone, but at least they were calm. So that is the point of power, is in the present. The point of power is in our alignment with inner beingness. What the other is, it doesn't matter what the other is. You want to say something, Ryan? Thank you.
Yeah, anytime I find myself in front of someone that's operating in unconsciousness, I just really stay alert to what's happening within me, to not allow that pain body, like that intense energy, to attach, because it's like it can be very contagious. But there's actually like a transmutational power in the contagiousness of it, because it's so contagious. It can really kind of tickle or poke at where we ourselves have a pain body, because if there's really no pain body within us, then somebody else's, I don't know, complaint or fear or sadness or like uh, victim mentality, if that's what they're operating in, and we don't have any of that in us, it doesn't sting at all. It's just like you see it, and there's a love, there's like a I'm here for you, but there isn't like a joining them in the story, um, or getting pulled into our own story. So that's my practice. Is if ever I'm around someone where I start to feel resistance inside, I look at that at my own resistance, number one, at always, regardless, whether it's environment, whether it's animals, whether it's other unconscious people, anything that disturbs my own stillness is where I look at as a lesson from God or present moment, from life, saying, hey, here's where you can get stronger. And so approaching it in that way as a lesson, okay, I'm feeling resistance right now. I'm feeling, I don't know, whatever it is that I'm feeling, I become aware of it. Breathe, recognize the story that's on mentally, let that go. Right? Return to silent mind and presence and just be with it. And then I learned. And whenever I've like learned and resettled, like what you're mentioning, a lot of times the outside will settle. Either the outside individuals will settle or they'll remove themselves. Like you don't even have to tell them to go; they just remove themselves, and you're just like, okay, that was easy. Or better yet, they calm down. They suddenly realize that they got caught up in a little dream, and they wake up, so to speak, and then they apologize. And there's not even really that you need them to apologize, but they do, and it's okay. So I've already forgiven. Um, so yeah, like that's how I approach anything that really challenges me. So if you're getting really challenged by unconscious people, then I recommend really switching the perspective to what can they teach us? What can they teach you? What are they pointing at? What are they poking at in you? And they can be really valuable teachers, mirrors for that reason. And the more you do this, and the more you successfully do catch yourself in a bit of mental story, mind chatter, or resistance, in like feelings of resisting something, whether resisting them, resisting who knows what. But anytime you feel that resistance suffering and you can catch it and let it go, you're healing. And doesn't mean that you do it once and it's over. it's a constant healing process where you may heal one moment and then another moment in a conscious person, and you lose it. You become reactive outwardly and inwardly. You're in a bit of suffering. Things are said that you normally wouldn't say, and then it eventually dissolves. And you look back and you're like, oops, yeah, I had a bit of reactivity there. I had a bit of ego. Okay, well, don't beat yourself up. Now is present, that is past, but learn from it and move forward. And we just continue to do this. And that's how we continue to find mastery of our own practice. But it's
I
not.
love the fact that you said that they will leave you. So that is how you measure your presence power, Marianne. Is like in my case, the pandemic happened and we started working from home. So I don't know who says this, Byron Katie or Abraham Hicks. The universe is always working in our favor. Believe that, like from every cell of your spirit, every cell of your being, know that the universe is working in your favor. If that person is unconscious, then somehow, if your energy becomes compassionate, loving kindness, then the universe itself will remove them. I mean, I didn't ask for a pandemic to happen and for me to start working from home. So I was not around that energy anymore, right? It look how the universe just does it for us. And now she's left the company as well, I found out.
Oh,
So it's like all the more the universe is working in our favor, right? We didn't have to do anything. Like I didn't have to go complain to HR or anything of that sort. Like, people think that they need to, the moment we start efforting, right, then the ego has come in. And to rest back in awareness and allow the compassion to flow is when the universe starts working in our favor. That's another and then looking within ourselves, right? What is the vibrational energy in me that is attracting this pain body over and over again? If it is a friend or a close relative or whatever it may be, right, then I need to dissolve that pain body within me.
yeah.
Just
Actually, one thing just from what you said there, it's Eckhart quote that's exactly the same from what you said. That really took my personal practice to a bit of a deeper level. Was life will give you whatever experience is most helpful for the evolution of your consciousness. How do you know this is so? Because this is what's happening. So the more I carried that, because when I would run into an unconscious person, my immediate reaction was resistance of like, oh, I don't have time for this. I don't want to deal with this, or who knows what. So I wasn't holding that. I wasn't remembering that life is giving me this challenging individual to deepen my evolution. And so it took a while to remind myself of this when I was in front of a challenging person before I genuinely, like, naturally felt it. For a while, there's a lot of effort of reminding myself, but eventually, you remind yourself enough, and you start to see these patterns in a different way, to where you're like, oh, it really is true. It's not just some nice sounding thought. It's like the key to understanding life is that trust with life, trust with like he often says, relationship with the present moment. It's like, do you trust that life? Do you trust life, and do you trust that it is giving you what you need to evolve?
that's phenomenal, Ryan, because what I feel is the more deep you go into your presence, you become more vigilant because you're using every present moment experience, right? You're not going to say, oh, this should not be happening. The blame, you so easily get rid of blame. Like there is no blame anymore. It's like, okay, the responsibility is mine. What is my energy that is attracting this into my life constantly, like moment to moment, right? Any resistance, and it's not even like Ryan is saying, right? It's not even a thought, it automatically happens. Okay, here's my resistance. I see some resistance. I'm driving in traffic. There's this resistance. So what am I resisting, right? Oh, I'm thinking that the sun shouldn't be beating on my face while I'm driving. It's summer in Texas, right? So surrender to the sunlight. So then you know why you were resisting is, oh, it's sunlight that's beating on me, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And also, don't underestimate how the universe can take shape to challenge you. It'll challenge through Facebook and Zoom and technology and people and storms and entire global pandemics. It takes all kinds of shapes and forms to evolve us. And like, so it's not just unconscious people. It's literally anything that creates resistance in you is a moment, an opportunity to learn, really deepen or evolve. Yeah.
What is it? I don't know if Eckhart ever talked about it, but didn't he say that the Tao Te Ching talks about be as supple as a grandmother,
Mm.
right? So I think there's a verse in Tao Te Ching about being as supple as a grandmother. So that's how soft, like you'll feel it in your inner being, the softness and the tenderness. That you had this harshness, outer shell harshness, and now it's dropping, and now it's just soft. Like whatever it is, it's like you let it flow, let it flow, let it go
Yeah.
through.
Yielding, flow like water, be like water, like who said that? The martial artist.
Bruce Lee,
Yes.
be like
Be,
water, my
be
friend.
like water. Yeah, exactly. Just go with the flow.
When you pour it into a cup, it takes the form of the cup. Be like water, my friend. Mike says, I have several sicknesses which at present prevents myself to do the things I enjoy. This time has helped me to improve my consciousness through thoughts in presence. However, I at times have immense anger at my situation, which I put down to my ego. How can I accept and deal with this? Um, the illness itself is a so Louise L. Hay has a beautiful book, You Can Heal Your Life, and in there she maps out, like she has a table and she maps out, okay, you have this physical illness, this is what is happening at the metaphysical level, and this is the affirmation that you could use potentially to release it. But most of our illness is, um, I mean, their lifestyle choices, right? Diet, physical exercise. Then the third thing is our depth of. So the one thing I would say, the most beautiful lesson that Eckhart's father taught him was, I'm going to be at peace with my illness. Like, however much he was suffering his illness, he was always at peace. And Eckhart has this, right? He has laryngitis, so whatever, when he's giving a talk, and Eckhart says he never goes to the doctor, he's at peace with his illness. Um, that's Eckhart's philosophy as well. So trust, trust that this presence power, this non-conceptual intelligence that is running, we are not telling our heart to beat, we are not telling our kidneys to function, we are not telling our cells to die, right? Like the skin cells die every day, a body forms another body in 7 years. So if you start taking care of, love yourself, love this temple, this body that is allowing, this vehicle is allowing the one consciousness to express itself, right? We were talking about sacredness. Hold your body as sacred and then make changes. Once you say, I'm a sacred being, right? I'm going to hold myself sacred, then start to take steps. I know in 2010, I started making changes, right? Like, okay, I won't drink soda. Like I haven't had soda ever since 2010. One day I said, even that one can of soda, why do I need that one can of soda? Why do I need to put chemicals in my body? The same thing with coloring hair. Last year, I decided in 2018, end of 2018, I decided, why do I need to even put chemicals in my hair, right? It's gray, it's gray, it doesn't matter. So I don't color my hair. So you'll start to make certain choices, right, that are more, that are the most compassionate, most filled with loving kindness towards yourself. Because how can we fill another person's cup if our cup is not full? If I don't love this form and do the right things for this form, right, eat the right things, exercise, in the conscious manifestation course, I think one of third or fourth or fifth module is about actually taking care of your physical health. Eckhart says, what is the point in doing all this manifestation if your health is suffering, right? Your physical body is suffering. So exercise. So look at your disease state and see if there are supplements that help it. Meditation does help, definitely. Being in presence, trust this non-conceptual intelligence. The more you are in stillness, the more healing you bring into your body. Trust it. Trust, implicitly trust this non-conceptual intelligence, that it has. Joe Dispenza talks about it. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about it. Louise L. Hay talks about it. Eckhart talks about it. That there's nothing like presence power. The point of power is in the present, is in that alignment with inner beingness. So seek ways, even with your limited movement or limited capacities of having all these sicknesses, see how you can bring presence. We offer free group meditation on Fridays. Please join us in group meditation. It's done on Zoom, right? It's published as a pinned post. I think Ryan offers group meditation too. Do you offer group meditation, Ryan? Can you do me a favor and post it on our group as well so people can join it if they are interested? That way, how many other people are offering? Because that collective shared energy field of presence is very healing as well, right? Leave alone the fact that we ourselves personally do meditation. Go ahead, Ryan. That's what I would say about sickness and anger. And anger will dissolve once you develop your presence power, right?
Yeah, the anger is what be my main focus, um, because it's suffering. I mean, anger is not an enjoyable thing. It's a strong form of suffering. So, and there's awareness though. The questioner, sorry, I forgot his name, um, but he has awareness that there is anger, and that's really fundamentally important, beautiful. That's like, in fact, the first and most important step is just simply recognizing, oh, there is some anger in me. There
It's
is
Mike.
some resistance. Mike, okay.
Mhm.
So yes, Mike, you are doing good with the awareness that there is anger. I mean, and naturally speaking, real world speaking, of course, we're going to feel resistance when our body feels threatened, when our existence, our physical existence feels threatened. We're going to resist naturally. Um, so, investigating that, bringing your awareness into it when it comes up, uh, is really an important part to healing internally. Even more important than healing the physical body is healing the internal. Um, and so when the anger comes up, recognize it. Okay, here's the anger, and anger really is just it's resistance. It's a some part of inner part of us is saying no, no, this shouldn't be this way. This isn't allowed. No, this can't happen. That inner no is the universal feeling or energy that creates all suffering. And no, saying no to what is. So there's illness in your physical form. This is what is. You can't change it as far as like, whether you accept it or you resist it is not, you can't just change it. So all there is left to do is accept, because resisting what is just, it's like wasting your time and energy. You could be thoroughly enjoying the this moment and the gift of this moment, and yet we often, not that you do it consciously, but we often spoil this beautiful moment because we're resisting some part of it, where and or where all kinds of things can come in. It can be some sense of victim. There could be other deeper pain bodies being touched on. There could be fear of death. Death is another big thing that's connected to spirituality, where deep emotions can come in because we're confronted with the reality of the fact that we are all going to die. This is truth. It doesn't matter if you're healthy or not. 100 years from now, our forms will dissolve. And how comfortable are we with that reality versus running away from it? And then when we get sick, suddenly it's like much more in our face, perhaps our own fragility, our own impermanence. But if you can go consciously into those feelings and bring presence into them and breathe with them, allow them to be there, then you can really find some deeper levels where the awakening is, where you realize deeply that you aren't the body, you aren't the illness, you aren't any of that. You are something way, way deeper and bigger that has no reason to be of fear of being sick or even dying, let alone, all these other things that may be coming up. And then the last thing with anger is a really interesting and big topic, is one of the reasons anger continues. So the fundamental piece of anger is that it's an inner no. We're saying no to what is. So some part of us is saying no to the illness. No, this shouldn't be happening. No, I don't accept. Okay, if that's how you're feeling, then okay. Recognize that's the inner no. Okay, there's the no. And where anger fuels itself, though, is that when we then resist the fact that we are resisting. So the first level is that you're resisting what is. You're resisting the illness. But it perpetuates itself because then perhaps you resist the fact that you're in anger, especially since you're in more conscious practice. You're resisting the fact that there's a bit of ego there. And that is actually more of the ego sneaking in. Whereas when you can bring acceptance to the fact that you're in resistance, then it just dissolves. So that's something Eckhart mentions a lot. That is, if you can't accept what is, then accept the fact that you can't accept. And you still get to sneak into the acceptance. And you get to feel the spaciousness and the sense of like, oh, okay, I can't accept this physical situation, but I can accept the fact that I just, for whatever reason, can't accept. And then you get to feel the peace, the stillness, the relief. And as Poonam was pointing out, though, there is correlations to healing our inner self and it actually healing our physical bodies too, which is beautiful and exciting. And I think there's a lot of science still discovered about that. But presence can heal a lot of things.
And what does Eckhart say about anger? Where there is anger, there's pain underneath. So as the presence power increases or the alignment with inner beingness, so it's like I always show that here's the lower frequencies of anger. We are vibrating at these lower frequencies, right? Anger, depression, anxiety, fear. And what Eckhart is saying is raise it. Here's your inner being. You raise it and match it. You raise your, instead of being angry here, you raise it, and surrender is a perfect way. I read in year 2018, due to an incident at work, I read chapter 10, The Meaning of Surrender, from The Power of Now, probably at least 40 times until I understood at the level of every cell of my body what it really means to surrender and be in a surrendered state, no matter what it is. So surrender to the physical pain, the discomfort, the sensations in your body as well is another thing. That's beautiful. Thank you, Ryan. This some more. Sweet says, I stopped taking Synthroid because while taking it, I still was having a hypothyroid symptoms. My doctor won't put me on a desiccated thyroid medication. I cannot change doctors here in Canada. I'm currently on no medication. Will I be okay, or should I continue taking Synthroid that is not only not working for me, but I'm having uncomfortable side effects from this medication? Um, I don't know. I don't feel comfortable giving any kind of medical advice, right? We are not doctors. So what I would say is change your doctor. If you, I don't know how it works in Canada because that's a single payer system, right? I don't know if they're forced to see the same doctor over and over again. How do you change or move to a specialist? So, your conscious manifestation should be, I hope my doctor moves away or you move a location and you have a different doctor. Because if they're giving the wrong medication, I don't know how you go for a second consultation. Because here we go for a second opinion, right? We're free to go to different doctors in the US. So I don't have a solution for the, can she take the medication or should not take the medication question.
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, because we're not doctors by any sense. I guess the only thing I would say is, do listen to yourself as far as if you're feeling side effects that don't feel right, speak up to your doctor about them, back of them, and then really make it a serious. Because sometimes doctors can kind of be like so fast paced and quick, and they're just like, here's this, and then goodbye. So like, if this is concerning you, and you can't change doctors, then write it all down, get it in a nice short way, and then approach it to your doctor and say, hey, look, this is my problem right now. Are there other options? What can we do to find a solution? And if you can't find a doctor, you just got to work with what is. Yeah. So but sometimes doctors can be like really busy, and you kind of have to slow them down and be like, wait, look, this is important to me. What do you think on this subject, or what can we explore the possibilities? So perhaps that would help. uh,
The only other suggestion I had was in the US, we have a medical medium called Anthony William, and he has a cleanse for thyroid disease. But it's up to you if you would want to change. But it would be something like very plant-based eating and certain things that you have to eat and regimen to keep up. So you can always look up his book. I'll post it. I'll post the link to the book. I think it has something to do with cleanse. He's called Medical Medium, and he does every um, day. He does a Facebook Live as well on thyroid disease, on uh, Lyme disease. He calls them viruses, so he has a supplement called L-lysine that he suggests. But it's up to you what you would like to do. Jasna has more, but then Poonam, when you are saying, I see myself and ask, what am I attracting as a cause of this and putting out? Isn't that negating anything outside of yourself and putting too much pressure on the self for everything? Um, I think so. Jasna, the when we say we are attracting, understand that at the level of our beingness, all of us are vibrational beings. So when we are saying attracting, it's more like a vibration. It's not mind energy. It's not the mind energy of, oh, I'm going to attract something. It's more like vibrationally, like I was saying, right? Here is the anger, the low frequency. We are down here at the low frequency of anger and um, whatever sadness or what have you, the vibrational energy. We just need to raise it. And the way we raise our vibrational frequency is through meditation. And you'll realize uh, once you do a presence practice like qigong or when that energy starts flowing into your body, you're going to feel that that presence is what knows that we are attracting according to our vibrational energy. It is not mind energy saying, it's not thoughts that are saying, oh, I'm attracting this pain body or this unconscious being. And that's why once we are in that high degree of presence, there is no blame. The one of the ego patterns of blame goes away. because we know we are not aligned. Why is this person coming in my life? Because I'm not aligned. I'm not up here aligned with my inner beingness, because this inner beingness is connected to source, right? When we are connected to source, we think like source. Is source hating, like if you have a family member you hate, is source hating that family member? No. Source is loving on all this whole cosmos. Planetary intelligence is unconditional love. And we went through this 2 or 3 weeks back during another Facebook Live. And I was telling somebody who was talking about their partner, how does relationships, how does presence help in conscious relationships or in relationships? It's like source is unconditional love. Now you be unconditional love. How are you going to be how are you going to get aligned there where you are unconditional love, right? When you are unconditional love, then there is no responsibility out there, because nothing wrong can ever happen to you. Even if you have a challenge, even if you miss the plane, there will be a reason why you missed the plane. That plane will meet with a crash, or the plane will get into, what was that volcanic ash that happened in Europe years ago? Even Eckhart's retreat got affected by it. There was a volcanic ash thing that happened, that all the flights were canceled. um, I don't know, in UK or Ireland or somewhere, there was volcanic ash, and the clouds were so dark that they couldn't fly flights all throughout Europe, and people had to travel by bus or plane, or I mean train, all throughout Europe for 15, 20 days. I don't know how long it lasted, but it's something like that. You will not get on that flight. So that's what Eckhart, Ryan, I are talking about, is learn to trust that intuitive power that presence gives to you, that you will always do right action, you will always act out of loving kindness and compassion, gratitude, humility, and empathy. And out of that right action, nothing wrong can ever happen to you. And even in anything wrong, there's rightness in it, because it'll be something like that. That if your house was flooded, then you were meant to go move into a bigger house. Your house got flooded, you went to the gas station, you bought a lottery ticket, and you won a lottery, and you went into a bigger house. Now, was that not the best thing that happened to you, that your house got flooded, right? That's the pure, uh, indescribable, infinite potential in presence, is what I would say. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yep.
Thank you.
It does feel like it's a whole lot of pressure to put on ourselves. Um, However, it's also stepping into our power. If if we are responsible for everything, if we are willing to swallow that pill that's very uncomfortable, especially when we look at the past and we're like, so there's certainly all kinds of crazy things that's happened in each of our, to say, how can I say that I'm responsible for attracting that? Maybe even as a kid, like how could I have been responsible for that? Well, it gets complicated. What's best there though is at that moment that's all past. So that keep that all as that is past. That is done. Right now, you're given this opportunity, this concept, practice of anything that happens from this moment forward. Recognize you have some part in the play, and if you can accept that, then you get to have the power to change things. If you don't or can't accept that you have a responsibility in every experience you have from this moment forward, then you don't have the power. You don't have any power to change anything or to manifest or to guide your reality in some sense. And that's your choice. Everybody gets to have the choice. We get to have this sort of free will of we get to choose what we feel comfortable with. But for me, and it really wasn't much of a question. It was just like, yes, if I can have the power, Absolutely. Well, I'll surrender myself all day long. And it can sting, though. It can sting, especially when you're contemplating past. So be very careful about not carrying into the past too much right now, but focus this moment forward. What are you attracting? So, like right now, you're attracting this Q&A, which is certainly of a much higher frequency than normal stuff that's going on in the world. So you're on the right track somewhere. Yeah, you're moving in a good direction. You are stepping into your power. So recognize that, and yeah, so and also just remind yourself for the mind. Um, it does seem like a lot of pressure, but there's actually a lot of beauty under that pressure. There's a lot of it's a gift, really. It's not a responsibility. It's a gift. You're being given a tremendous gift that comes. Great power comes with great responsibility. Yeah, but it's a great power. It's a really, really valuable power that just immensely increases the quality of your life, as Poonam is saying, because suddenly you really start to feel genuinely nothing ever happens by accident. There are no mistakes. Everything has a reason. And on top of that, everything is a gift, actually. You're always being carried gently and carefully and lovingly versus like just being some random piece of of a story floating amidst all this chaos and confusion and other separation. So the whole world is all separated when we think that everybody else is, when we don't recognize that we ourselves are connected to everything, um, and vice versa. When we recognize and can claim responsibility for our own manifestations, the unconscious ones especially, then we can start to consciously manifest. We can start to choose. The word conscious implies choice. So you get to choose who you are around and even how you interpret something that happens. You get to choose your inner state. You get to choose whether you're in anger or peace, resistance or suffering. You get to constantly choose, and that's the beauty of it. But if you don't want that, okay, you don't have to take it. No one's forcing.
Perfectly said. I think Sadhguru gave a very good example. He said, it's like, do you want to be a car where all the four wheels are not aligned and they're going every which way? So, how's that car going to be? That's how most what we call normal human beings are not normal. They're like the car with all the four wheels not aligned, and what you're seeking is alignment so that you can be a smooth ride, you can make your life. And once you detect that, Jasmine, it's going to be so incredibly amazing. You're going to go, oh, today I did this, I was in 20 minutes of meditation and I healed this. I mean, Eileen has all these aha moments, right? Oh, I did this. Past year has been incredible for her. I changed this and now I healed this, I healed that. Every day, every week, she has something new, a new breakthrough. So try it, see if it works out. If it doesn't work out, go back to your old ways. But you will realize, do a month or two of it and it will work. I would say give it 6 months. Don't do a month or two because you have a very fast mind. So give it at least 6 months and then come back to us and say, come back in 6 months and say, did it work out? Did it not work out? Did you discover your power? And that's the power that we are talking about. One person, Maria, said, pandemic allowed me to be where I am, so here's where I have to stay. That's profound. Yeah. Surrendered to what is, right? Karina says, hello, I would like to know your opinion in regards with this unconsciously loving someone, consciously at the human level. I don't know what unconsciously loving someone, but consciously at the human level. Do you know what that means, Eileen?
Sorry, I had to come back to your screen because I'm on the Facebook screen with another person responding to the question. Let me see. Hmm. I'm not sure since it uses um, opposite words in the same sentence. Um,
I don't think unconscious here is in the same has the same meaning as what Eckhart uses unconsciousness, because when he says unconscious, he means spiritually unconscious. That means you're being angry all day, you're being frustrated all day, you're being irritable all day, then that's spiritually unconscious. That person is just repeating their condition patterns, right? So unconsciously loving someone, actually, this means like, uh, can they consciously love at the human level? Um, I think it's chapter 8 or 9 of The Power of Now, where Eckhart talks about enlightened relationships, that you can use your relationship to actually make it a very spiritual practice. So, yes, you can consciously at the human level. It doesn't mean that just because you are a very highly awakened human being that no, you cannot have any more relationships. Yes, look at Eckhart. Kim Ing actually had a very heavy pain body, and she's talked about incidents where she had a pain body attack and he would leave, right? So his you either accept the situation, change the situation, or leave. He would actually leave the house, and then she would call him once she calmed down from her pain body, and he would just come back. She would say, he would say, "Yeah, I'll come back," and he would come back. So he's used her a lot to grow spiritually himself. So it's not like he said, "Oh, I'm a highly awakened being. Why am I going to live with this pain body?" Right? And look how beautiful a transition, how much of a quantum leap Kim Ing has made in the past 20, 30 years that she's known him, right? 20, 25 years that she's not, he's 73. She met him when he was close to 50, right? Late 40s. So maybe the 20, 25, 30 years that she's known him, like she's become a spiritual teacher now at the same level as him, right? So she used him to let go of her pain body and evolve in her consciousness. So, yes, you can consciously love a human being. I see that in Byron Katie and Stephen Mitchell. I mean, the way Byron Katie's eyes light up when she looks at Stephen Mitchell, right? The love that pours out of Byron Katie for her husband. So yes, I feel you can consciously. This will be the last question, Eileen, because it's late and I know you have to leave. But um, I feel you can consciously love a partner at the human level. Yes, that can be done.
she did add, Karina added, in my case is the opposite. My love was and it is growing. No pain on my side.
My love is growing and no pain from my side.
Yeah.
Oh, she
My,
may mean that her partner is unconscious and she is conscious, and her love is still growing,
possible.
right? Yeah, that's what he talks about in the enlightened relationships. Go ahead, Ryan. You may have more insights into it.
On the same page of what you mentioned, does it? I would be curious. Like, does it challenge me at all? Where am I slipping? Where's my practice to love being challenged? Right? because the idea of loving is nice, but when we get aggressive, defensive, argumentative in any way, that love has it's kind of got put over on the shoulder for a second, and a bit of our own ego or little self, mind self has snuck back in and is operating. And that's a really, it's a powerful opportunity for spiritual practice. And that's how I approach it. Is nothing escapes spiritual practice. Everything that happens in the blanket of present moment is spiritual practice, whether it's work, whether it's family, friends, anything and everything. Social media, this Zoom call, it's all present moment. It's all spiritual practice. But especially our intimate partner relationships, because there's nothing like really getting to know somebody when you're living with them, and the repetition of it and all the pain bodies just inevitably clash. So it's a wonderful opportunity to deepen our own practice, and it sounds like you are deepening, which is good. And that's really the only thing you can do. You can't, you got to be careful. The mind might try to create expectations of where they should be in their own spiritual practice or conscious level versus where they are. And you got to be real vigilant and aware of that, because that's just another mind game. It will actually dilute your own conscious presence if you're super concerned about where they are not. So the unconscious or the unconditional love is really just being able to fully just appreciate them exactly as they are, even if they're in a very unconscious state, negative, reactivity, judgments, whatever. They're in that, but you can see through it. Just love them regardless, not just conceptually, but internally, to where being around them, you don't feel disturbances of any kind. You don't feel irritations or anger or frustration, or we sometimes with our partners, we can have a list of things we'd like them to change. We're like, oh, okay, well, it'd be nice if you changed this and started doing this more and stop doing that. So be aware of that, because that's kind of the mind coming back in and demanding change. Not that we can't put up our conscious boundaries, but at the same time, it's a really subtle, fine line between putting up a conscious boundary versus demanding somebody to be different than the way they are, which is not unconditional love. So just keep working on you, focusing on you. What I found interesting, and this from my own experience, was when I did this, the unconscious individual I was with at the time removed herself, and it just I wasn't even trying. It just happened. It's similar to what we were talking about earlier. It's like when you're really being anchored in your presence and practice, the other person is either going to do their best to keep up, or they're going to separate like oil and water, like Eckhart says, and it'll just naturally dissolve. Either way, it's a gift, because either way you're growing. And if somebody else, if this separation does happen, okay, this is what is. Life is giving you what is next for the evolution, and it's also creating space perhaps for somebody of a similar frequency. Or another great scenario, though, would be that you're holding your practice, and your practice allows them to heal and to be inspired to kind of go in their own way, but still raise themselves, so that you can grow together. Because any relationship, I find in my own personal life, is that when there's a mutual agreement that the relationship is for spiritual evolution, then it is much more harmonious and peaceful and enjoyable and smooth, versus the other. But if it is the other, we find ourselves in the other. Okay, let's work with what is and do our best, and our practice will take care of us regardless of what happens.
That there, what comes to my mind is it more so is about, like, if the other is unconscious constantly, there is somewhere in the power of now or a new earth where Eckhart says it is more important to forgive this present moment, so that we don't keep carrying it into the next future moments, right? So the unconscious human beings is offering us that spiritual lesson of forgiveness of this. Did you really forgive? Now here's your challenge. Here, forgive this now. Now forgive this now. Now forgive this now, right? And it's constant. Are you going to be in gratitude now? Are you going to be in gratitude now? And now at this moment. So it's beautiful. And that's what it is. Look at your experiences and see Am I forgiving moment to moment to moment? Am I loving kindness moment to moment to moment? Am I compassionate moment to moment to moment? Am I in gratitude moment to moment to moment? And with that, I would say Eileen and Ryan, absolutely filled with gratitude. We had an incredibly amazing time with all the people that participated as well. So y'all made an incredibly elevated conversation, which I'm grateful for. So thank you so much. Have a fantastic evening. I will see y'all uh, next time. And take care. We have group meditation on Friday. So if anybody's willing to come to the group meditation, it is at 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern, uh, 7 p.m. Mountain Time, 6 p.m. Pacific. Correct, Eileen?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Ryan. And remember to post your group meditation so that people can join. We would love to increase the presence practice. I mean, there are so many people that are trying to imbibe Eckhart's work. So I feel that this opportunity that the group meditation gives them, that they anchor their presence. So Jasna, please come attend our group meditation on Fridays. And there's one offered on Sunday. So try and manage those, and that'll give you a repetition, right? Friday to
Absolutely.
Friday to Friday, at least once a week, you are doing a group meditation with us. And you can drop, like, if you don't want to participate in the conversation, just participate in the meditation and then drop. Good night, everyone. Thank you, Ryan. Bye. Thank you, Eileen. Thank you for the wonderful job. Appreciate it. Take care.